Hi, you're very welcome to Aduco Gym Live. We're going to cover nutrition once again with Martin Forde. And so you're very welcome. My name is Jamie Marsco and I'm from Aduco Gym. And Aduco Gym is all about getting your mind, your body, your life, and your community into shape. So we're hoping through these series of events that we're really doing our best to educate you in the area of nutrition. And I think it should make a huge difference. It's something that we're very passionate about and we notice the difference it makes to ourselves. So I'm going to bring in Martin. Martin, you're very welcome. Thanks a million again for joining us on our Wednesday afternoon slot. Yeah.
Pleasure as always, Jamie. It's thrilled to be here.
So we're going to cover something a little bit different, and it's not normally. I know it's a topic that people maybe don't consider when they're thinking of healthy diets. So people might be doing all sorts of different diets in a search for a better level of energy, a better level of health. But often this aspect of nutrition is missed out on, and we're going to talk about nucleic acids. So maybe you'd explain to everybody watching what we're talking about in relation to.
Absolutely a neglected area, Jamie, a neglected area, which has only reared its head in orthodox nutrition, if you want to put it that way, academic nutrition, in the past 15 years or so,
Yeah.
when they discovered that babies who were given infant formula that lacked nucleic acids didn't thrive, didn't
Okay.
thrive as well as they should. And so they had to literally, in some cases, add back nucleic acids. Now, when you drink milk, then naturally there'll be mother's milk or cow's milk. There's naturally a certain amount of nucleotides or nucleic acids in those. And that's actually quite important for, say, babies' development anyway.
Yeah.
But in terms of adult nutrition, if you can have an intake of nucleic acids in your diet, and hopefully a highly available or fairly abundant intake, then that sets you up for using all the nutrients that you take in under normal circumstances. So if you eat protein, you need nucleic acids, which are inside your own cells, in order to use that properly. Now, there are two kinds of nucleic acids.
Okay.
Yeah. One is DNA and the other is RNA. DNA has the pattern for what should happen, but RNA carries out the pattern. And your body makes huge amounts of RNA in order for this exactly to happen. It has to make a lot of RNA. It also has to repair DNA. And for that, it needs substances called nucleotides. They're part of nucleic acids. And you can eat them. You do eat them. Your body has a system for breaking them down and assimilating them. And they should be part in abundance of your diet. And most animal foods contain a good amount of nucleic acids, although it can vary quite a bit. But certain foods don't have a lot of them. And although I mentioned them in conjunction with milk and dairy products generally don't have a lot of nucleic acids. Eggs wouldn't have a lot, but meat, fish, and animal products in general would have a lot. Now, certain vegetables will be higher in nucleic acids than others, but it's hard to say that they're absolutely reliable sources. The great vegetable source of nucleic acid, if you can take it, is brewer's yeast.
Yeah.
That's nucleic acids in a nutshell, as it were.
So,
And
so effectively, nucleic acids, they're helping to make up your DNA, which is the roadmap or the blueprint for your body and for your cells, and then the RNA are carrying out the instructions of the DNA. And I've often heard of nucleic acids described as young cells. So what does that mean exactly, young cells?
any young cell from a young organism, for instance, you go into the garden and you pluck a young leaf or a freshly grown fruit or whatever it is, right? Well, fruit are not high in this, but some leaves could be. The youth of the cells means that they have a higher proportion of DNA in them and a higher proportion of RNA because they're growing.
Yeah.
So anything that's growing and forming tissues will have a lot of RNA in it, which is a reason why yeast has a lot of RNA.
Okay.
So if you want a source of nucleic acids, then the whole theory of nutrition around eating young foods comes into it.
Almost high life force foods as well.
Well, it's an aspect of the whole life force theory of foods.
Yeah.
And very much so, if you look at vegetable foods, young vegetable foods, rather than, as it were, the more mature types of vegetable foods, can in general have more nucleic acids,
Okay.
more RNA in them. Now,
Yeah.
what does that do? That actually makes it possible for your cells to be more active. And there has been work done on this, and there's a whole diet based around nucleic acids, which shows that that it has, let's say, a rejuvenating effect on the system because it helps you form better, newer skin,
Yeah.
better, newer tissues. It helps your glands. People actually benefit from better glandular function using nucleic acids. Uh, and the list goes on and on. For instance, you have better heat tolerance. You make more heat in your body. You can take the cold better. All these things come about from a good level of nucleic acids. It actually helps your metabolism really quite a lot.
Okay, great. So helping your metabolism is obviously going to be important, particularly if you want to for energy levels, but also staying trim is it's good to have a high metabolism. So
Yeah,
how would somebody then know if they were maybe lacking nucleic acids, or are there certain signs that somebody would need to increase their uptake of
it
nucleic
happens all
acids?
the time, Jamie, that people eat protein and they're not benefiting from it.
Okay.
Now, of course, you can change that around by doing the right kinds of exercise, but some people are going to need more nucleic acids to jumpstart the whole protein formation aspect of their metabolism. So, yeah, nucleic acids can help from that point of view. And the other aspect is that nucleic acids are really very, very good to help your energy and your endurance. So once you can get the cells doing their thing properly, which is producing all those chemicals that allows your metabolism to continue and to burn up food properly, then your energy will come up, and particularly your endurance. Nucleic acids have been very, very helpful for people. Things like climbing mountains and all the rest of it, where you have to use oxygen more efficiently. Nucleic acids comes into it for that type of thing. And many of our athletes that we've trained, as you know, have found great benefit from the high density nucleic acid foods that we recommend, which essentially are desiccated liver and brewer's yeast.
Yeah.
So if you can get those in, then you benefit from the concentrated nucleic acid. Say, if you were going to go into this type of thing, two dessert spoonfuls of desiccated liver gives you more than 2 grams of nucleic acids. And if you repeat that if you repeat that every day, after a short while, you find your energy and endurance coming up quite a lot. So
Okay.
that's nucleic acids for you.
So let's say a person is taking in what would look like sufficient levels of protein, which if anybody wants to know the levels of protein that they need, if they have a look at the episode that we did last week, which is saved on our Facebook Live, because I think that's really important. But so they're taking in sufficient levels of protein. So what are the signs that they're not utilizing that protein properly?
They'd be a little softer and flabbier than they should be.
Okay.
Because using protein properly, the tissues should get really quite firm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those firm tissues, once they're generated properly inside your system, will burn fat for you. But if that's not happening or not happening fast enough, then nucleic acids would be the appropriate thing to add into your nutrition.
And if they did, can they do that muscle test? Is that a good indication of whether they've got good quality muscle? So if
Jamie,
they're
how do you do that muscle test?
so if they run their forefinger across the
Exactly. Yeah.
bicep and they're looking to see, is that smooth or is it slightly
Yeah.
grainy or bubbly? And
Exactly.
if it's grainy or bubbly, the muscle tissue isn't dense. And the way
And
that we
just
look at it
simple
when
as
we're
that. Yeah.
and the way that we look at it when we're training people is that we'd often say, if it's very soft or porous or grainy, and you can't do it through your clothes, by the way, you do have to touch the skin. And if it's bubbly like that, obviously if it's bubbly in that muscle, it's bubbly in other muscles throughout the body. So for example, your heart, which is 90% muscle, you want that to be dense and working well. So the firmer you are, in the muscle that you can feel, the firmer it's going to, the corresponding muscle tissue throughout the body is really going to make a difference. And you'll notice, I think, well, I've certainly noticed that the firmer the person is and the smoother the muscle tissue, the higher their level of energy. So I'm presuming that if they're taking adequate protein but their energy is not coming up, maybe it's a good idea to see could they increase the nucleic acids. And I think in traditional diets, they had a much higher level of nucleic acids because they tended to eat meat sources and fish sources that had higher nucleic acids, for example, organ meats. Isn't that right? Whereas obviously nowadays we tend to go for the leanest cut of meat, maybe because we're trying to avoid saturated fat, and therefore we're missing out on the nucleic acids.
Yes, it is true. It is true. And just to return to that muscle thing there, if you make a muscle and you make it as tough as you can and press into it, and if it's still soft, now you have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having tested thousands of people with this, then particularly, some of the ladies who won't eat enough protein, they can get very, very soft in their muscles, no matter how hard they try, as it were. And it's very good to have good solid muscle underneath whatever little bit of fat that you have on the skin. And it doesn't have to look like muscle. It just needs to be there and be solid. Absolutely. Because if you have that, then you start burning up your food really well, and you're much less likely to be running to fat as such.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, Jamie.
We're talking about quality and not quantity, because people can often be concerned that they're going to look bulky with all this extra muscle.
Oh, yes.
But it's actually the quality of the muscle that they have.
Yes.
And I mean, we probably can touch on it now, but there are definitely things that are going to reduce the quality of muscle. So if somebody's doing excess exercise, which we've talked about, or doing a lot of running, aerobic-based fitness, they could find that their muscle tissue will become less dense. They will lose muscle. And then low-calorie diets, I think in the research...
All of these things are massive stresses on the body.
Yeah.
There are massive stresses. And you have to gradate your stress, and you have to build yourself up against stress. Nucleic acids are very, very effective for that, because if you have enough nucleic acid activity in the body, then you'll respond to stress much more readily. And here's the thing then, that if you and I then, we know about ancestral diets, Jamie, I'm sure you tell people about that.
Yeah.
And the diet going back in generations, I mean for a long time, contained fair amounts of meat. If you even look at the 19th century diet, and they originally did nutrition surveys back in 1910 and that type of thing, and if you look at those, people were eating really a lot more meat than they do now today, and they had a very high protein content in the diet. And of course, we know now that obesity is today's problem. It wasn't so much the problem in those days, frankly. A lot of people were very lean for all kinds of reasons, now to be fair. But the protein content was higher. But in that, they also, as you pointed out, were inclined to eat more organ meats. So we would have Leopold Bloom getting up in the morning, right, seeing as that June has just passed, right? He would get up in the morning and he had kidneys for breakfast, yeah? Now, this type of thing wasn't very unusual, and they would be nearly twice as high in nucleic acids as ordinary muscle meats. Liver is very high in nucleic acids.
400 grams last night. It was very tasty.
Well done. Well done. Well done. So liver properly cooked, very, very palatable, very tender. You get the right liver, and you can include that big time in your diet, and it does help you have better cells. You're literally tuning up your cells when you do this. And when you tune up your cells, by the way, Jamie, as I was saying to you, it's my view that you have better access to your mind. How about that? Better access to your mind.
Yeah.
If you can get the circulation running through your cells properly and through all the aspects of the body we've talked about, and you can tune the cells themselves up, this cell health, cell rejuvenation. If you can do all that, then you're going to be able to use your mind better than the next person. And the mind, of course, and not everybody quite realizes this, is a huge thing that's behind our mind, behind our visible mind. And there's a wealth of intelligence and inspiration available there for anybody. And the first step is your physical health and the health of your cells. It allows you to draw in the wisdom that's already in there, and the guidance, I guess, that people can benefit from.
So there's some very famous Well, I know there's a very well-known study that was done with rats, and it was a test of endurance. And maybe you talk a little bit about that, because I think it's a fun one for people to hear about and to understand the benefits of the nucleic acids.
The actual experiment involved the rather endangered, let's say, the rats. But aside from that aspect of it, the experiments were done in an effort to find what foods would be endurance foods for soldiers. The experiments were done by the US Army, essentially. And they fed desiccated liver to rats, and they discovered that rats who were fed desiccated liver could swim for approximately, I don't know, maybe, let's say 80 minutes in comparison to rats that weren't fed desiccated liver, who could only swim for 10 minutes when they were put in very cold water. So there was a massive multiplication of the endurance factor there. And that's what nucleic acids can do for you.
And there was also the health guru whose name is just gone out of my head. Jack, isn't it Jack?
You're thinking Jack LaLanne.
Jack LaLanne.
Oh yeah, Jack. We have the example of Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne was the first man to open a health store and the first man to open a gym in America. He put exercise on television in America.
Yeah.
And he's massively famous in America. Though I don't notice people knowing so much about him here. But Jack lived till he was 96. And for his 70th birthday, and for every birthday after that, he used to do a feat of endurance.
Yeah.
One of them was to tow 50 boats with a person in every boat around San Francisco Bay, which is the coldest water in the world, in temperate climates. And he tanked himself up with 300 desiccated liver tablets, which is about 200 grams of desiccated liver every day for 6 weeks before that.
Wow.
In order to develop the endurance against the cold and the simple physical endurance to be able to do this strength feat. He was an amazing athlete. He was supposed to be untireable, but there was a lot to do with his diet, because he knew how something like liver would work to keep his cells
functioning at their
in a
best.
Very active state.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you can read about his feats of strength, with, like you said, on his birthday each year. And one of the secrets he maintained was the quantity of liver tablets that he would consume before the events. Because I think that's a really good one for people. I
have a great video of his 95th birthday, Jamie, and he says, I've just written this new book. You have to get this book, right? And I'm going to take my own advice. He says, I'm going to start living now, he says. Well, he passed on the year after that, but he was pretty fit looking when I saw him in that.
Yeah, he was in great shape, great health, very active mind, still doing television work right up to that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So
that was Jack LaLanne, and the idea of using desiccated liver as a nucleic acid supplement. Not even so much protein, because he had plenty of sources of protein.
Yeah.
But the nucleic acid is what he believed in. Liver is an amazing thing as a food. For instance, I'm going to harken back to the Gerson therapy.
Yeah.
Dr. Gerson, who flourished in the 30s and developed a system for curing cancer with nutrition. Some of you know, a lot of you will know about it, because it's where juice therapy first became really big. He gave people 13 glasses of raw juice a day, but he included liver juice in that. So it wasn't a no protein version of a healing diet. It very much had protein and nucleic acid in it. Yeah. He believed that by juicing, in his case, raw liver, that it would restore the ability of the body to throw off cancer cells. And he helped many, many people, many cures, based on that therapy. Now, I'm not advocating raw liver to people. I've met people who like it and who do it, but I'm not advocating it. But I do think that you would benefit from including liver in the diet, and have a look at the idea of taking desiccated liver, which is, for some people, is going to be the easy way to do it. And it comes in capsules as well. So even moderate amounts or small amounts can make a big difference
Yeah.
from this point of view.
And then the vegetarian source is the brewer's yeast.
Brewer's yeast is such a valuable addition to the vegetarian diet. If once you get the right kind of yeast, we actually had some trouble getting the right kind of yeast. Yeast has to be made in such a way it doesn't pick up heavy metals and that type of thing. And we found that we had to go to Switzerland for it. So the particular type of yeast that we offered then is of particularly high quality. And the way you would take it is you would take a spoonful, maybe in water, maybe in juice, first thing in the morning or last thing at night, just like that. And you get that nucleic acid effect, that endurance and energy effect. Some people take both.
Okay, brilliant. And if somebody was going to take liver powder, is there a particular way what's the best way to take it?
One extremely good way of taking it is to put it into freshly squeezed orange juice and have it first thing in the morning. So you can put a dessert spoonful into the orange juice and just knock it back.
Yeah.
Just as simple as that. Now the orange juice then, with the little bit of vitamin C that's in that, will help carry the nutrients around the body.
Yeah.
And open out the circulation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I honestly, for anybody watching this, it's really worth a try because it's like taking a tonic in first thing in the morning. It gives you this great, incredible amount of energy. Well, this is certainly what I found from it. And it's also very good, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes before training, if you're not taking something like amino ore for burning fat from the waist, but if you want something to really help with your endurance during training, it really does make an incredible difference. And that's just personally what I found. I love it. It's brilliant, particularly when you take it in orange juice.
Fantastic. Well, there you go now. Yeah. And you have to be careful that you don't get, sorry if you'd excuse me.
Yeah, go for it.
I could be criticizing a country here, but some countries allow hormones in their meat.
Yeah.
And they can offer desiccated liver, which could have hormones in it. I mean added artificial hormones. And it's a big, big problem. Obviously, it's a matter of controversy in Britain at the moment. What with Brexit, the question is, will they be allowing in meat that has a lot of hormones in it?
Yeah. Because
the hormones are forbidden at the moment in the EU. And so if you wanted desiccated liver, you should try and get EU sourced desiccated liver. Yeah. We may not be, from our point of view, we may not be able to get it all from Ireland.
Yeah.
But we get it from within the EU where there's no hormones used in the production, in the animal husbandry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really important to mention.
Yes.
Because obviously you don't want to be consuming extra added things that you definitely didn't want in your food.
Yeah, we state on it that it's hormone free, so just watch out for that and don't be tempted. You can get it in by mail order. You can get in desiccated liver from other sources, but in this case I really don't recommend it. It's not really a saving.
Yeah. Now we did talk in previous. In a previous event about the benefit of liver and the skin, and it's probably just worth maybe mentioning it again, the impact that eating certain organ meats, the effect that they have on your organs, because your liver being your detox organ and so vital to your health. Maybe there's some people watching this that might consider taking liver for the other health benefits, because obviously the nucleic acids are great and so important, but
the beauty benefits.
Yeah. But just generally giving your liver a boost is so important.
Exactly. Well, is it true that by eating liver you can benefit your own liver? I would think that it was true. And there's a certain amount of evidence for this. But if you do benefit your liver, that means you're benefiting your detoxification. Yeah. And that's why Gerson gave liver to his people, to his patients. So if you can bring up your detoxification, then if you tend to suffer from pimples or something like that, that tends to go away.
Yeah.
Because you're detoxifying all the time. You're bringing up your immune system. The liver has certain stages of detoxification, and it needs certain things at each stage. And one of them is the B vitamins and the substances that are found in liver. It can use all of those to bring up detoxification. With that, then, all you would need would be, a reasonable amount of, going back to the life force foods, Jamie,
Yeah.
a reasonable amount of raw foods in the diet, because in the raw state, the foods will provide literally life force, particularly if you can get them direct from your garden. But they also provide undamaged phytochemicals, as it were, that can be used. So the combination of liver with vegetables that are consumed in the proper form, whether it's rare, whether it's lightly cooked or raw, that would be very, very beneficial. Or in the form, frankly, of juice, and then you could nearly be on something resembling Gerson's routine.
Yeah.
You could have vegetable juice, for instance.
So
I'll give you an example.
Maybe you could just mention a little bit, Martin, about the what sort of happens to food as it's transported or brought in from a fair distance, as opposed to food that you can take straight pretty much from farm to fork. I mean, certain amounts of nutrients can be lost when it's transported. Isn't that right? And
very, very obvious with fruit, Jamie.
Yeah.
That fruit that comes in from abroad can vary a great deal. I'll just say that it varies in quality, and often enough it's picked unripe.
Yeah.
And I'm not clear that it ever quite ripens in some cases. And you could be eating unripe fruit. That's a bit of a hazard, because if we were to talk about something like the effect of different combinations of food on the diet, then if you combine unripe fruit or subripe fruit with certain other foods in the diet, that helps just clog up the body rather than help free out the circulation. The fruit should help free out the circulation.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean,
is that just because certain nutrients don't develop properly, like they develop more in the ripening process? So if they're subripe when they're picked, they just haven't developed those nutrients.
Yeah, the phytochemical in the case of some of the fruits, the phytochemicals only develop in the last week or two of ripening. And so you could find yourself with a fruit that wasn't as high a quality. Know.
Yeah.
But we bring in, I mean, it's a blessing in a sense, Jamie, that we can get fruits from and foods from all over the world.
Yeah.
But with the caution that they may not be as vibrant as they were when they were picked originally.
Yeah.
But with air transport, I suppose they come in quicker than they used to be fair.
Yeah.
And it's just something to watch. But the optimal is supposed to be, if I might say so, supposed to be that you maybe have your own garden and you eat from that. Or at least eat some foods from that, because you get some. The example I sometimes give, Jamie, is that when a dandelion leaf is analysed, it can contain maybe 20 times the amount of phytochemicals that a lettuce leaf would have.
Okay.
So you've got a lettuce there, you're paying out for lettuce, and you're going to eat 20 lettuce leaves in your salad, which is great. You could eat one dandelion leaf and get as many phytochemicals as that.
Wow.
So some of the wild foods are much more concentrated, and some of the local foods are much more concentrated in phytochemicals.
Yeah.
And it's the phytochemicals that you want, if you want to put it in a chemical, in terms of chemicals, it's the phytochemicals you want. So if you can get dandelions, nettles, if it was possible to include those in the diet. Now, I'm going to confess to you, I don't go out and pick nettles and cook them up, right? But in desperation, I sometimes tell people who need to do that to do it, and it works very well for them. Honestly, making nettle tea. And you asked me about arthritis, Jamie. Okay, so if you've got arthritis, right, get nettles, boil them up in a tea, take 2 litres a day of nettle tea. Now tell me what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's likely to cure you.
Okay, wow.
It could be a simple way forward for almost anyone.
Yeah, because
parsley tea works the same. Nettle or parsley tea or a combination of the both. And all you do is you just get the thing, boil it up, and you drink the liquid.
And is that down to the alkaline nature, or is it the anti-inflammatory properties?
The anti-inflammatory properties, even more than the alkaline nature of it, yeah. I mean, they are alkaline, of course.
Yeah.
but nettle is specifically
Anti-inflammatory.
anti-inflammatory. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was reading about watermelon this morning. I think an article my wife sent me, and they were talking about the concentration of lycopene, which was far higher than, let's say, some people would have tomatoes because of that nutrient. But they were saying that it's literally the last bit of the ripening process that really develops the nutrients.
Well, there you go. In the very
in
last moment of
watermelon. Yeah,
yeah.
all the different benefits of having watermelon. So naturally, I had to buy watermelon this morning.
Of course, right. I'd rush out immediately and buy some. But I mean, no, I agree, because but these foods may not be native to Ireland, but it is a big advantage to be able to have it.
Yeah.
And you know, the beta carotene. Even we've got carrots. Carrots and carrot juice. Is there something wrong with your eye? Take carrot juice. I mean, have a go at it. I'm sorry, I'm not just joking there, because I had a patient the other day that was had their eye condition cleared up just from taking carrot juice. As simple as that. Some of these things are so simple to carry out.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Well, we're pretty much bang on a half an hour. So I think just to maybe wrap up today, what we're emphasizing is increasing the levels of nucleic acids. And we really do recommend that you try this. And if you're not for eating organ meats, then maybe you could consider taking a supplement of desiccated liver powder. And we do two different types. We do one with extra heme iron and one without. So we would probably recommend men take the regular desiccated liver, and then ladies with their monthly cycle, possibly, and with a greater need for iron, would maybe consider taking the special liver formula with the extra heme. And then the brewer's yeast is a brilliant vegetarian source. Anybody who's vegetarian or vegan who wanted to increase their nucleic acids. And we've often recommended it to people who are vegan, and we'd notice a difference in their ability to use protein, actually, and you'd see a big difference in their strength levels. Yeah. And then I suppose the other part that goes hand in hand with the nucleic acids, Martin, I suppose, is the high life force foods, the sort of the young foods that are rich. They'll be rich in life force, but also often can be rich in nucleic acids.
And those native foods, those foods grown close to home,
locally,
that can have really high levels of phytochemicals in them.
Great.
Like such as the nettle and the dandelions and such like.
Great. So if you can think of, is there anything else that I'm just trying to think from point of view of those topics? Is there anything else that we want to mention? I think that's we've pretty much covered it. Just to see if there's any
secrets of cellular health.
Yeah, exactly. The secrets of cellular health. And we have a message from John, who was, there are so many supplements. Could you guys possibly do a daily chart for recommending the different times you take the different supplements? Yeah, it's so dependent on what you're trying to do, I think, isn't it, Martin? When you're trying to fit things into your schedule, but it can be like that when you're really passionate about the supplements and you're trying to fit in your amino ore, and then you're trying to think, when do I take Nova and when should I take
again, our talk so far have largely been about diet, about the value of the foods.
Yeah.
Choosing the right foods, putting them together in the right order. A lot of the time, by the way, I'm just going to say that when people come to me for help, all I do is restructure their diet. They may often be taking foods that are good in themselves, but in the wrong combinations, the wrong order.
Yeah.
By restructuring, you can get very, very far indeed, and you can change things around quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then a supplement strategy. Yeah, I agree. Maybe people need to develop a strategy for supplementation, and I'm sure we can talk about it one of the days, Jamie.
Definitely. And just this is an interesting aside, but we had our youngest son, who's just over a year old, and we were out at my brother's birthday for a lunch, but he suddenly developed what looked like a rash underneath his eye. It looked like actually insect bites. But we noticed that every time he was having a meal or different meals, that it would suddenly flare up again after that. And it's over the last couple of weeks. But we noticed that avocados have very high levels of histidine. And once we cut the avocados out, it made I don't know if you've seen that before, Martin, but it looked like insect bites, but it was almost like a rash.
No, it's new to me, and thank you for the information. Yes.
Yeah. So strawberries and avocado seem to have a lot of the amino acid histidine, which forms histamine. and then you need to take an antihistamine. But he's obviously too young for that. But it's amazing. It's totally cleared up since we cut out just that one food. It's amazing how a food can have that kind of impact. So we're also going to give him a little bit of liver just to make sure his liver is clearing out the unwanted amino acids quickly. Yes. So there you go. That was an interesting one.
Jamie,
one I hadn't come across before.
No, indeed, myself, yeah.
Okay, great, Martin. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who joined us. And for those of you that watch this later, we hope you enjoy it. We think it's full of great information and good health tips. And we'd love to hear about your experience if you try the desiccated liver, or indeed, even if you just increase your nucleic acids. We'd love to get some feedback. So, Martin, thank you once again for joining us.
A pleasure, and see you again.
Great. Yes, we will see you again soon. And for everybody watching, thank you very much. I just managed to lose my pointer, so you're swimming around the screen. Great. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.